Look at the weather.
It's beautiful here.
Non-stop rain.
Oh, man, it is a blazer out there.
It's cold and it's shivery.
It is cold.
Really coming down here.
I really enjoy your weather reports.
From the All Indiana Podcast Network, we're talking weather in a whole new way. From historical events to what's coming up, plus weather news, science, safety, fun facts, and more.
I like where this is going.
This is Weather Weekly. Weather Weekly with Wish TV Storm Track 8 meteorologist Marcus Bailey.
Welcome to episode 182 of Weather Weekly. Yes, this is the second episode this week of this terrific podcast. Thank you all for tuning in. You are hearing a different voice on this episode. For longtime listeners, you probably recognize this voice. Yes, this is Storm Track 8 meteorologist Steven Diana. And for those who are new listeners on here, thank you for tuning in. We appreciate it as always. It's always a privilege and honor to help out my good friend and great coworker, Storm Track 8 meteorologist Marcus Bailey. It's been a while since we've done a longer timed Weather Weekly podcast episode. I believe it was December 2022. So Marcus has been quite busy, so it's a privilege to be able to help him out. I am happy to have earned the right to be able to help him out with this podcast, for him putting his trust in me. Of course, that's what happens when you work hard and be diligent for your weather team and for other people in general. So folks, that's just a quick little life lesson for you. Of course, you work hard and you get a lot in return of great stuff. So let's get straight into it, guys. This episode is going to be quite something, and unfortunately, the main topic of this, a little uncomfortable for me to talk about, but we'll get through it, of course, for multiple reasons. But let's get straight into some local headlines. As Marcus alluded to in yesterday's podcast episode, it was a pretty hot week last week, and I liked how he used the word steam bath. Yeah, it was awfully hot and humid last week. The highest temperature last week was 93 degrees last Monday. Then we had a couple of 92s in there. Overall, 6 90-degree days this month of June. From what I last checked, that is well above the normal for 90s in this month. We usually typically average about 3 90-degree days in the month of June. Now, fun fact, July is our hottest month, so we are getting to that point. It's now summer. It's usually supposed to be on the very warm side, but even with averaging about 90 degree days a year, we still want to take the heat seriously. And now you don't want to play around in this stuff. It's definitely tough to be out in, and my dad has to be out there too as well, which sucks, but it is what it is. But overall, we are turning towards a less hot picture for this week. I'll talk more about that towards the end of this podcast episode. It's kind of leading to a couple of headlines from recent days. Saturday, there were 5 tornadoes in Wisconsin. One of them was an EF2. One of my close friends actually covered that tornado. It was a very nasty debris signature near the town of Janesville, Wisconsin. And then Sunday, which was yesterday, I'm recording this on Monday, June 24th, we had an elevated tornado risk in the New England region up in Vermont and New Hampshire. It's a rare sight to see elevated severe probabilities up there. They're just not known for stuff like that. Quite the sight. I haven't heard much of any tornado confirmations. There may have been one at least, but I couldn't tell you as of right now. We'll see what ends up being the end result of what happened yesterday up there. But overall, yeah. Going to be a little bit busy around here locally. We have been running a bit low on rain this month, and we do have some severe risks as well. So there is a low level 1 and a 5 marginal risk up north in northern Indiana, mainly north of Indy, from about Lafayette, Kokomo points north of a large slight risk from Iowa up through Minnesota for Monday night into Tuesday. And then, of course, for Tuesday night, there is a severe risk that stretches down through much of Indiana, level 1 marginal with a level 2 slight risk in the northern third of Indiana for mainly damaging wind and some hail. Wednesday's severe risk is basically for the southern half of Indiana, level 1 marginal risk once again for mainly damaging wind and hail. But coming up on Weather Weekly, we're going to talk about the 1-year anniversary of June 25th, 2023, how that day brought monstrous hail and several tornadoes, one of which unfortunately hit around the same area that was hit earlier in the year. We'll talk about how that atmosphere was volatile that day as well and how it led to all of the action coming up next on Weather Weekly. All right, continuing right along with episode 182 of Weather Weekly, let's dive right into June 25th, 2023, and why it felt more on the personal side than other events. I mean, especially considering the fact that some of us almost got hit on this day by dangerous thunderstorms in general. So basically, this system came up on our radar as early as, I want to say roughly Thursday, June 22nd, basically. So 3 days out. Now, of course, when you're a few days out from a potential threat for severe weather, you kind of have to be careful of how to word things, especially when models have a pretty stout setup for severe weather, like a strong bit of flow aloft, like a strong disturbance, or not just only that, but with ample instability, lots of unstable air pushing in for robust thunderstorm development. But overall, I recall there being a day 4 risk through southern and central Indiana. Now, the Storm Prediction Center, for those who are not too aware, they issue all kinds of outlooks. They issue stuff based on severe weather, fire. They'll do mesoscale updates to convey a message in the middle of potential development or possible watch or something that's ongoing with an event. They even issue winter mesoscale discussion outlooks for snow-related stuff. So they do all kinds of stuff, but I'm not going to lie, leading into this event, there were some things that were quite misleading with some of the discussion on how things were going to evolve. I recall models being a bit everywhere, especially within 24 hours of said event, which was a bit concerning because it's like, look, we got to really nail this down. This could be a potentially serious day on Sunday, the 25th. So again, there was a risk on Thursday, the day 4 outlook, for southern and central Indiana. Basically, most of central Indiana was in the risk. By Friday, they shifted that a bit east, and I don't exactly know why. Now, here's the thing. I do recall models showing serious storm development in eastern Indiana especially, but like they had the slight risk, the level 2 to 5 risk, basically touching Richmond and then diving south along and south of Columbus, like Bedford, and then the slight risk went into like the southwestern quarter of Ohio. And I was like, okay, I'm not really sure about that. Here's the thing, guys. On Friday, and this was Friday's outlook that I just mentioned about, I just got back from my long run. I usually do a long run every Friday. So I was eating lunch, and I'm not going to lie to you guys, my stomach started hurting. I was looking at models, looking at stuff, trying to get a better gauge of this system. And one thing I want to mention too, another thing I did want to mention, actually I'll mention it here in a second. I don't want to kind of throw you guys off with it. Let me continue with this part. So, just looking at things and getting that feeling, it was like an uh-oh moment. Now, sometimes your intuition can be wrong. Usually they'll say, trust your intuition, trust your gut feeling, but sometimes you still don't want to do that, although most times you're probably going to be right. Usually when my stomach hurts about 1 to 2 days from a severe weather threat, something serious usually happens. And it does not happen very often for me to get a stomach ache before that. I can't explain it. It's just, again, one of those feelings you get thinking, or your overall body not sensing something right. It's like your fight or flight response or something like that. It's like your sixth sense is kicking in a way, basically, as well. So I remember looking at models, and it was just like, oh no, this doesn't look too good. And a couple things, when we look at models, we'll look at a variety of models, and we've mentioned this in the past on these episodes. The GFS and Euro are more of our long-range models. Now, this is not something that we want to use for like nailing down specifics, like, okay, storm A, B, C will be here, and then this group will be here. The front's going to be here. We're going to have this spin up here. We don't necessarily want to do that because here's the thing, guys. With those models, things could change abruptly. And like I said, models had no clue on exact placement with Sunday. I was seeing a lot of solutions, more solutions east for more serious severe weather in eastern Indiana and Ohio. I even saw the Euro slowing down and being in more Illinois for Sunday. But some people, including myself, was thinking, I don't think so. We're thinking Indiana. Now, going into the rest of the day, the Weather Service in Indianapolis put on their forecasting site severe thunderstorms Sunday. They don't do this very often. It was one of those, it was almost like I had a mind game for myself. It was like, do they know something we don't? Or is it just to do it? Just basically being like, yeah, severe weather's, some of the storms could be severe, doing one of those things. So it was one of two things with that, as I just mentioned. Also, there's a thing called SIPS. It's basically an analog site. I don't try to fully rely on it, although it's interesting to look at. I feel like sometimes some people take that to the bank, and it's like, I don't recommend doing that all the time, personally. But here's the thing. I recall looking at the site, and basically what it does is it'll go through systems in the past, and better matches of an upcoming system will, of course, be ranked higher. One day popped out at me at number 6 on Friday. The number 6 analog was June 11th, 1998. I know what happened on that day. I was 2 months old. Obviously, I don't remember it, but there was an F4 tornado near Cumberland. Cumberland is just outside of Indy. We had an F3 in Greentown. We had 8 other tornadoes that happened besides those 2. Now, I also meant to mention in my chat too, no, not meant to mention, I did mention this. That system was a bit different than this one will be. Because in 98, the low pressure was more in like northern Illinois, northwest Indiana, if I recall, somewhere in there. And the warm front was more in a southeast direction across northeastern Indiana, western Ohio, and the cold front was a sharp southwest direction through Illinois. This system was a little different. The low pressure was in Wisconsin. We had an elongated, bulging cold front along Illinois. We had a wide, warm, moist air mass across the Ohio Valley, and that spells bad news potentially, especially in this time of the year. And it just clicked with me too. I saw a similar looking system to that frontal setup in a way, although the low with this date I'm getting ready to mention was up in North Dakota, was June 2nd, 1990. That was a far more prolific outbreak. That was actually our biggest one in state history of 37 tornadoes. But it's like you get a low like that with strong winds aloft and try to use a different word, copious amounts of unstable air, and you get that strong lift from the cold front, you're probably going to have problems, serious problems in the summer. Another thing I want to bring up too is that I kept seeing people draw out their own risks, severe risks for Sunday, and I'm like, what are we doing? What are we seriously doing? A couple things with that. One, it's going to create confusion with the public. The Storm Prediction Center's second off are the only ones who issue severe risks. Now, I know sometimes the Storm Prediction Center, they don't always do well with the risks. It just happens. It's nature. We learn from it and we move on. But man, and I've seen more people do this stuff in the last year, and it's just like, oh man, please stop it. And guys, when you see this stuff on social media, if it's not from the Storm Prediction Center, don't waste your time looking at it, because I don't want you guys to get confused and be more alarmed or less alarmed and just be like, okay, well, this guy's saying this, so no, chances are these people are probably not like, it just depends. I don't want to go too deep into that area of the water, but basically by Saturday morning, again, things were a bit uncertain. I will say this, we were watching that Saturday risk up in Iowa because there was going to be some remnants of convection, meaning rain storms that came down early Sunday morning from that. There was a low marginal severe risk for Sunday morning, mainly in the Wabash Valley region. This complex was likely not going to do anything to deter Sunday afternoon, because there was going to, one, be plenty of time for us to heat up, and two, basically it was an afternoon to evening peak time frame, meaning during the hottest day of the hottest part of the day, I should say. So The slight risk actually moved back west by Saturday morning. So when I woke up Saturday morning, the slight risk was for much of Indiana. There was a significant risk for hail up to Indy, basically. And I was like, okay, that seems more like what I was expecting from the Storm Prediction Center. But then, by the afternoon, they put an enhanced risk in Kentucky and Ohio. And I'm like, I don't know about that. And here's the thing, too. Models were really struggling with the initiation point. That was the big thing they were struggling with. Like, where were these storms going to fire? Most models had skipping over Indiana, and I'm like, I don't know about that. I think some of these models are going too fast. A lot of the time, things tend to slow down when you get closer. It's like you give it, like you're a week out, and it's like, okay, it's going to be in Ohio, but within about 3 to 4 days out or so, or even closer, oh, now it looks like it's going to be Illinois, Indiana, or like say, oh, it's going to reach Illinois, but it's actually going to be in Missouri. That's how I've seen this go a lot, especially in 2024. There's plenty of examples with that, but either way, the severe risk, bottom line, was increasing, and I think a lot of us knew that was coming, because we had a potent environment just waiting to set off. So throughout the day, you got to do what you got to do, posting on social media. And this is a critical time to mention this too. At this point of the year, we've already had a handful of tornadoes, okay? We had the March 31st outbreak. You have to be a little bit more cautious with how to word things to the public. You still want to convey your message with a little bit of urgency. But when there's a lot more people with storm anxiety or possibly renewed storm anxiety, you want to take into account that aspect of the people. And I just, I was just trying to be reasonable with my messaging even. I feel like I've really improved in that area a bit over the last couple of years. And for all of you who are, of course, up and coming in this business, just know you need to convey your message with reason. I see some people, and I feel like this just keeps growing. There's just more people that get so hyped about severe weather, and it's like, what is there to be hyped about? There are so many people, especially in the last couple of years, I've seen that, or so many areas that have just been hammered by these tornadoes, and it's like, I think that December 2021 event changed me a little bit with severe weather. It's just not as, I don't want to call it a thrill, but it's something where I just tend to get more anxious. But I use that anxiousness as leverage, positive leverage for myself and for our team at Wish TVA. So basically, just trying to be patient, and it's hard to be patient, especially when you have a day like Sunday coming up, basically. Also to mention, too, leading into this, we were in the middle of a tornado outbreak. We had a couple of tornadoes that were very, very intense. One was in Matador, Texas, and I remember everybody saying it was going to be an EF5, and it wasn't. It was an EF3, but it caused, unfortunately, a lot of damage, and it was a very slow mover. It was kind of reminiscent of Gerald. Gerald still is a standalone as one of the worst in history, in my opinion. Gerald, Texas, from 97. And we had the Grenada, Colorado tornado. That was a very intense one. EF3 max winds, I think, was 155. Yeah. So we had a bit of an outbreak already ongoing leading into this. That's something that I was also getting ready to mention about as well. So we get to Sunday, folks. And so there are some drastic changes happening with this outlook. When we get to Sunday morning, I stayed up late. Why, I have no idea, and I shouldn't have overall. We had now the enhanced risk along basically much of the eastern half of Indiana. Basically everyone along and east of US 31. We had a significant tornado risk. We had a damaging wind threat of 30%, meaning 30% probability of a damaging wind gust of 58 plus miles per hour within 25 miles of a point. There was also a risk for significant large hail. I was definitely concerned about the hail threat, too, because of how hot it got on Sunday. I think we hit like 93 on that day. I don't recall, and forgive me on that. I was much more worried about everyone's safety on Sunday, June 25th. So me and Ryan are talking. Storm Track 8 meteorologist Ryan Morris, we're talking throughout the morning. He went Facebook Live. And basically, I went into work. Storm started to fire off around 2 o'clock. So our risk was increasing like it should have been, in my opinion. By 12:30, we were pretty much... we had a... This is... And I want you to keep this in mind, folks. The Storm Prediction Center had a significant tornado threat basically from around near Newcastle Point south. In basically this almost the southeastern quarter of Indiana, southwestern Ohio, and far northern Kentucky. Again, keep that area in mind in relation to what actually happened. The tornado threat did extend west towards like Lafayette, Greencastle, Evansville. And this is why no matter what risk level you're in, you need to pay attention. You really, really need to pay attention, especially on a day like what this ended up becoming. So storms fired off pretty early. And they also fired off much farther west than originally anticipated. Let me say that again. They fired off way farther west than they were supposed to. That was the worry, too. Most of everyone's thoughts was, okay, we're going to see stuff fire off pretty much right along US 31, which cuts through Indy and up to Kokomo and down towards Nashville. But there was also mention of a little bit of uncertainty as to if stuff can fire west, and it sure did. Broke the cap, which is a lid that prevents thunderstorms from developing, and those air parcels just shot straight up like a rocket ship into the volatile atmosphere, and storms ballooned like no tomorrow. So, over the course of the next several hours, numerous severe thunderstorms would develop during the afternoon of June 25th across central Indiana. Not just central Indiana, pretty much all of the state had a severe storm at some point, I would say. Even like northern Indiana. Storms produced tornadoes, damaging winds, and very large hail up to 4 inches in diameter. Listen, folks, Indiana does not get 4-inch hail. This isn't Oklahoma. This is not Texas. We're in Indiana. We do not see 4-inch hail in this state. That is unheard of, typically. So, Cape values are rising to 2,000 plus joules per kilogram. That's the measurement of the energy in the atmosphere, meaning we have a moderately to strong unstable environment. Some of these values, like supercell composite, the ingredients that are basically formulated into this composite with the output, had a number. I see numbers from 12 to 16 on this site called EMC Wrap. Basically, what that told us was this environment was highly capable of supercells, no question. Not just supercells, but very dangerous ones too. Also, the hail parameter was, I want to say, off the chart. I mean, I'm seeing very, very high values, meaning like these storms are going to produce hail, and these storms can produce life-threatening hail, very damaging hail on the board. So basically, by 3:30, we had a group of supercells from near South Bend, near Kirkland, Indiana, by just west of Monrovia, approaching Hendricks County. Also in Greene County as well, west of Spencer. And other cells that were starting to try and form, break the cap, like north of Petersburg, heading towards Washington, Indiana. So the first tornado warning of the day comes at 3:30 on the dot, pretty much. And that would be the storm by Kirkland. Before that, we had a storm up near South Bend that would produce hail up to 3 inches in diameter. But wait, the Kirkland storm said, hold on a second, hold my beer, unfortunately. Because I guess this storm really wanted to outdo that one because of what it did next. This was the storm that put up 4-inch hail, basically, or produced 4-inch hail. Everybody in Kirkland that our news department talked to, we sent a crew, I should say, up to Kirkland, basically, and everybody had hail damage to some extent. It was that bad. And it just goes to show, you don't need a tornado to ruin a day. or to ruin some amount of time, because hail damage can be very bad as well. So me and Ryan are on the air with this storm. These storms were mainly moving northeast. As they approached US 31, they started to become right turners. When a storm begins to right turn, that's a problem. That's a bad that's a serious problem, because here's the thing, guys. When it does that, you're going to get warm, moist inflow coming into that storm much more efficiently. That's going to help increase the likelihood of the production of a tornado. So this storm up by Kirkland, heading into northern Hamilton, southern Tipton, was starting to rotate pretty well, unfortunately. Long story short, I am still shocked to this day that storm did not produce a tornado. I seriously thought that was going to be our first tornado-producing storm of the day, and it wasn't. Sometimes storms just don't produce tornadoes. It just happens. There's sometimes some things. It takes quite a bit for a storm to get a area of rotation within the cloud to eventually develop into a funnel, or wall cloud eventually develops to a funnel and towards a tornado. There's a bit of a process that goes with that. There's some things we still don't exactly know about why some storms produce tornadoes and others don't. I believe the number is like 30% of storms, only 30. It's a rather low number of storms that eventually produce tornadoes. Now, basically, by around 4 o'clock, Storm Track 8 Chief Meteorologist Ashley Brown shows up. Because usually, especially when we're on days like this, because it was a Sunday, of course, and Ashley works typically the weeknights, Monday through Friday, she'll eventually arrive somewhere in the vicinity about 30, 45 minutes after we started. So she showed up, and it was a three-person trip, because it's always important to have extra staff. Obviously, that's no surprise. That's a gimme right there. You gotta have extra support and teamwork on a day like this. So basically, I went over to our weather desk while Ryan did radar driving, basically helping Ashley drive radar. They're talking about these storms. About 15 minutes later, I remember looking at radar, and I thought to myself, this is not going to be good. Why did I say that all of a sudden? Because all 3 cells just had that look. The one near Kirkland, the one that was actually approaching close to Indy, and the one by Spencer. And I remember messaging my chat, and I'm trying to find it here, because I was constantly messaging my chat. And some of my friends also had a bad feeling about it as well. So, I actually forgot I sent this message too. I sent to my group chat. I hope we don't have a repeat of things from recent weeks either, but insurance companies are not going to have a fun work week coming up. And that was in reference to the hail, especially. But by 4 o'clock, I said I do not have a good feeling about these supercells over the next couple of hours. And what happens by about 4:15, 4:20? The supercell that I was mentioning that had passed by Monrovia also right turned, heading straight for Whiteland. A hook echo is quickly developing with this storm, and by around 4:20, Marcus actually texts me a video of a tornado on the ground passing right by him, just to his south. And it was like, whoa, what in the world? So, as soon as I saw the video, I quickly tell Ashley and Ryan saying, hey, got visual confirmation of a tornado from our own Storm Track 8 meteorologist, Marcus Bailey. And from there, it was like, this is absolutely crazy. This area is getting hit again for the second time in not even 3 months. I don't remember the last time I have seen a particular area in this state that has had more than one tornado in the same year. And I'm just talking like general area. I'm not talking in the exact spot of a certain town. I'm just talking about the general scope of the area of a town. And I want to say the last time it happened, now I'm thinking about it, was probably Petersburg, Indiana in June of 1990, during that June 2nd outbreak I mentioned earlier. That town had a separate violent tornado that was long track, passed right by the city, and then a separate violent tornado went right into the city, close to dusk, basically, or right at dusk, I should say, and destroyed part of the town. But seeing this unfold near Whiteland just made me sick to my stomach. And you have to remain strong. You have to remain in control of your emotions in a situation like this, and that's exactly what all of us proceeded to do. We remained firm in the moment and not let this dangerous event unfolding sway us. So we continue on with the coverage. The tornado tracked for 5.4 miles. Max width was about 200 to 400 yards wide, so it approached a quarter mile wide at one point. Low in DF2, 115 mile per hour winds, and it started just west of the Travis Road and Mullenix Road intersection. Moved east and intensified quickly as it produced damage near and around the Travis Mullenix intersection, including bricks blown off a large house roof damage, a trailer moved into an adjacent yard, and trees snapped. Spotty low and DF2 damage was probable here as well, with maximum 115 mile per hour estimated winds. Of course, it continued east and through parts of the Kensington Grove subdivision with substantial roof damage to some homes and some trees down and snapped. Then it, of course, turned southeast and passed over an open field where a narrow debris swath was deposited. Tornado may have skipped up and down a bit. Basically, it lifted roughly a quarter or third of a mile southeast of this location of basically near a Restoration Church, with no real further evidence of a tornado, but still short-lived, but lasted long enough to cause significant damage. And it's just tough. Again, it's just tough to see an area that has taken a second hit from a destructive tornado in a matter of weeks. But either way, moving forward, we had other stuff happening. We had another cell in Monroe County that was producing tornadoes as well. Let's get to that next. So that tornado started around 4:30. It was an EF1, max winds of 100 miles per hour. It's a short-lived tornado. And these tornadoes on this day were rather short-lived, but this just goes to show any tornado that's on the ground for any period of time is a threat to life and property. So 4.45 miles was the path length for this tornado that was northwest of Ulutik in southwestern Monroe County. Max width was 100 yards. Basically, some trees were observed snapped at the trunk with this tornado. It basically reached peak intensity west of Rockport Road before damaging a house and a nearby outbuilding, another house that also extensive roof damage along Rockport Road before the tornado lifted just to the east. Around the same time, a few minutes before that, there was a tornado observed near the city of Crane. That's up in like far northern Martin County. This was also an EF1, tracked for only 1.5 miles. Tornado began just west of US 231 and it ended in Crane Naval area. Trees were knocked down at tops. Some mainly tree damage with this tornado, but intense enough to be rated on the higher end of the EF1 rating. Now, unfortunately, we had I would say this was the strongest tornado of the day near Alfredsville in southern Martin and into far northern Du Bois County. This was an EF2, although I believe this was stronger than an EF2 considering the damage it caused. Estimated peak winds of 120 miles per hour. This was also the longest track tornado and the widest as well. 9.12 miles was the path length of this tornado. Max width was 565 yards. That's a fairly wide tornado. That's not small. Unfortunately, one person did die in this tornado. We also had another injury. And this marked the third deadly tornado of the year in Indiana. The first two we had were on the night of March 31st with the Sullivan and Spencer tornadoes. So this EF2 that started at 4:34 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, it started just west of Haw Creek Road in southern Martin County, produced EF1 damage to a home with destruction of a two-car garage and roof ripped off of the home. But it continued to move east-southeast, crossing the White River to produce EF1 damage also to numerous trees along Jackman Hill Road. It strengthened as it moved towards Wyndham Road, where it produced damage consistent with an EF2 to a home along Wyndham Road between River Road and Ridge Road. Only one exterior wall of the home remained standing, with the rest collapsed. And this is where I think this could have been rated EF3 potentially, but with rating tornadoes based on damage and having all these damage indicators, and I wouldn't say sometimes, more of these homes these days are completed at a faster rate, so their construction quality, unfortunately, not as higher end quality in general. It's crazy how they build so much, build cheap for more cost. That's wild to me these days, but that's how they get you. Basically, winds associated with the tornado are believed to have gotten under the patio decking and lifted the structure, as some 2x4s were shown to be sticking vertically upwards. This likely caused the eventual collapse of the structure. That would probably explain why this did not get a higher rating, especially. Unfortunately, this is where we had one fatality and one injury at this home. The tornado began to turn more to the southeast, producing widespread tree damage along Blue Creek Lane, with multiple trunks snapped and uprooted. The tornado then continued towards Simmons Creek Road, producing widespread tree damage just north of Simmons Creek Road. There was damage reported to a structure north of there, but the Weather Service was unable to actually inspect the damage due to trees blocking roads. So at this point, the tornado marched east-southeast mainly, but began to weaken as it entered DuBois County, where some tree damage in the form of snapped trunks and uprooted trees were observed. It lifted just before County Road North 960 East in DuBois County. Very intense couplet, too. I want to mention with this tornado in Southern Martin, this tornado on radar had a pretty intense presentation with it. Made it look more intense, of course, but again, tornado definitely was probably stronger than an EF2, but again, the damage with which it caused into what specific structures prevented from a higher rating. So 4 tornadoes in Indiana, but you don't need, all it takes is one tornado to make it a devastating day for you. You don't need 37 tornadoes to cause it to be a bad day. All it takes is one. One's enough. A tornado itself, by definition, is a violently rotating column of air, and it causes immense problems. And that is something to never forget about when we are in a situation like this. So unfortunately, we had one deadly tornado on this day, along with the major hail. I'm going to see if I could try to find some of these reports of these hail reports, basically. Yeah, like a hail report of 2 inches in Clay County. It wasn't just up in Kirkland. We had significant sized hail elsewhere as well. So yeah, Clay County, just 3 miles northwest of Center Point, 2-inch hail. 4-inch hail Kirkland, size estimated from references used in social media photos. We had baseball-sized hail in Kirkland as well, so we had a range of hail sizes as well with that massive hail core. 1.5-inch sized hail, 5 miles northeast of Thorntown, Clinton County. That was ping pong ball, sized around 3:25 p.m. That was shortly before the storm went tornado warned as well. 2-inch hail, 3 miles west of Kirkland. See what else we got here. We had 2.5-inch hail, that's tennis ball size, near Sheridan and Boone County. And 2-inch hail also in Boone County. Quarter-sized hail north of Plainfield. So overall, 4 tornadoes and some very large hail made this event last year problematic on several levels. At the end of the coverage that we did, I will never forget saying this on the air, and I absolutely did utter these words while we were wrapping things up. I was basically saying, Ashley, I'm not sure about you, but I don't remember the last time a location has been hit more than once in this state by a tornado. And as I was just alluding to earlier, I believe it was Petersburg, Indiana in 1990. But at the time, when you're basically wrapping up and trying to take in what just happened, you're not thinking about historical stats, you're not thinking about this or that. All that's on your mind is, I hope nobody died. I hope people listened to the warnings. I hope people took this seriously. I hope that damage is minimal. It didn't take very long for video of the Whiteland tornado to surface, and the motion of it was just violent looking. I couldn't believe it. The spin on that tornado was ferocious looking up close. You could see the damage it caused in our video, one of our more notable videos of last year, especially of the summer. of just the debris being lofted up very quickly with the tornado. It was like, my goodness. So overall, yeah, I won't forget this day, especially with the gut feeling that I had leading up to it. And I'm just glad that Marcus and even our storm tracking meteorologist Tara Hastings were okay. They weren't too far from this tornado, and I want to actually correct myself from earlier in the podcast. And I said some people were close to being hit. I wanted to say some people that I personally know almost got hit on this day too. So that's why I felt more personal, because with not only having coworkers that are dangerously close to this stuff because of the storms coming to them, you also are worrying about your family, your friends, and it's like it could be a burden, but again, you have to find a way to, one, have faith, and two, be as strong as you can. There's no book, there's no class that's going to teach you how to keep it together in one piece when it all hits the fan. It's all on you. That's how you respond. That's what determines a lot about your character in this business. How do you handle adversity? This is something that Marcus taught me pretty early on. It's not just giving a forecast at the wall. It's not just giving a quick story every 15 minutes on the air and all that. A lot of this business is how you handle adversity. So that's something that's very, very crucial to understand. So, yeah, June 25th, 2023, quite the day. Hot, humid, stormy, and a bit of destruction from not only tornadoes but also the hail as well. So I hope you guys enjoyed all of that. That was a bit of an experience to kind of walk through, and it would be nice if we can slow things down with this year too for tornadoes, because my lord, it has just not stopped, especially in the Great Plains. But gonna go ahead and wrap this up after the commercial break. I'll talk about the extended local forecast here in Indy for mainly the final week of June and going into early July. Let's go ahead and wrap up this episode of Weather Weekly by talking about the extended local forecast. Overall, as I'm recording here on Monday, June 24th, there's going to be some cloud cover increasing for a Monday night with lows in the upper 60s to low 70s. There is potential for a few showers and thunderstorms, especially in northern Indiana for Tuesday morning. Could be some extended showers into central Indiana, although that probability is on the lower side by early Tuesday afternoon. Going to watch for a storm complex from up north to come down here tonight. That's that round of activity. Now, Tuesday night, some models are struggling to develop some extra storms in like Illinois and Wisconsin, Iowa, Missouri, but there is potential for another storm complex to kind of ride more into central Indiana Tuesday night. Now, Tuesday will be a hotter day. We may struggle to hit 90, though, due to some cloud cover Tuesday, so we'll see how that evolves. There is a low severe risk, mainly Tuesday morning in northern Indiana. Then there is a lower severe threat Tuesday night into early Wednesday with a level 1 out of 5 marginal risk for much of central Indiana. But there has been a risk upgrade, though, for some of northern Indiana. A slight risk now extends down towards just south of Lafayette, a level 2 to 5 risk Tuesday night as well. So the details, though, are still tricky for Tuesday night and Wednesday. There is a chance for some showers and thunderstorms. Low severe risk mainly along and south of Interstate 70. Highs will be in the low to mid 80s. Still quite muggy through Wednesday too, before we have another round of brief reprieve from heat and humidity Thursday. Thursday looks fantastic in the low 80s, but we do quickly heat things back up going into the final weekend of June. There's a chance for some thunderstorms Saturday. Can't quite give too much on specifics with that. And then there are some signs we do cool back down a little bit going into the start of July by next Monday. So thank you for tuning in for this episode. It was a great one to do. Be sure to always check out our podcast on the All Indiana Podcast Network. This has been Storm Tracking Meteorologist Steven Diana. You can find me on several social media sites. On Facebook, it is Steven Diana WX. I have a V in my first name. On Twitter, now known as X, it's still Twitter to me. It's Steven Diana WX altogether. The only letters that are uppercase are my first and last name initials and the W in WX. And also on Instagram at Steven D_WX98 on the Instagram, not on TikTok still. I know a couple years ago, Marcus was like, you should get on TikTok. And I'm just like, I don't know. I don't have any like solid reason to be on there, but thank you guys though for always listening to this amazing podcast, and also sending your ideas as well to marcus.bailey@wishtv.com for any ideas you'd like to hear on here, and we will be back with you guys next week.
Discover more from Storm Track 8 Weather and Wish TV. Online at wishtv.com, and when you follow Wish TV on Facebook. Plus, be sure to check out more great podcasts from the All Indiana Podcast Network now at allindianapodcastnetwork.com.